Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm here to get more information about Proposition One. I know that this issue of oil monies was probably largely debated in the legislature before it went to the governor to be enacted, and you would have much more information than the average Alaskan at your disposal. Could you tell us a little bit about the pros and cons so that
Well,
people can
absolutely.
make an informed vote?
Yeah, it's a very important issue because that's going to be on the ballot in August, and you'll have a
Yes.
chance to vote on it. So just to give you a little background, um, the legislature was talking about things that we need to do to get more oil in that pipeline. And I'd be glad to tell you what we were thinking of, but various things that would give some benefits to the industry if they got more oil in the pipeline. In the meantime, the governor put in a bill which would give substantial uh, tax cuts to the industry. At one point, it was $2 billion. Apparently, it's not going to be that much, but it was a substantial reduction in oil taxes on big oil. It came to the Senate, and the more I thought of it, the more I was against it personally. I voted against it. It passed by 11 votes to 9 votes. So we have a 20-member Senate. 11 people voted for it. 9 of us voted against it. I got to tell you that there were 2 Republicans, myself included, who voted against it, and then all the Democrats voted against it. The rest of the Republicans voted for the governor's tax bill, tax relief to the oil industry. It went to the House and it passed even stronger. And the governor signed it, of course. And then what happened is the public said, wait a minute, this seems to be too much to me. So people asked me what I thought, and I told them, I gave them the speech I gave on the floor of the Senate opposing the tax increase. At home in Kodiak, the darndest thing happened. I couldn't get involved because of ethics. I couldn't get people to. I couldn't ask you to sign, the referendum. That would be illegal. It would be legal for me to do. But 2 people came forward and said, we want to chair this, getting these signatures in Kodiak. And the funniest thing is that the 2 guys were the 2 people you would never think would ever sit down to the same table. Yeah, yeah. Because one guy was the most conservative person, far right. I mean, he's always bragging on me about conservative issues, and he was ready to stand up and be a chairman. The other guy is the biggest environmentalist in Kodiak, and he was always bragging on me about how I was not liberal enough. So these 2 guys got together and disagreed on everything else in the world, probably, but they agreed on that the governor had gone too far on the tax cut. So they got signatures in Kodiak. People in Cordova did it as well. People all over the state. That's right, you're the one I talked to on that. Yeah, people all over the state put together this referendum. And that means now, because the public has the right to question anything government does in this state, and they can put it on a referendum, and it will be voted on in August. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I honestly don't. But it's where it should be. It's in your hands. This is a democracy. You can override anything that has happened, and you have a chance to override that piece of legislation. So listen, it's going to be a sleigh ride, because you're going to hear from big oil. You're going to hear from those who oppose in favor of taxes, oppose the taxes. Everyone's going to be. You're going to have ads on television and newspapers, and it's going to be just inundated with information. But in the end, since it is a democracy, you get to decide. You tell us, what do you want to go as far as the governor went or not? Let's back up. Years ago, we had the ELF tax, which was the name of that was the economic limiting factor, and that was in many ways a giveaway to the oil companies. We weren't taxing much of the oil coming out of Prudhoe Bay was not taxed at all. We own that oil. We were given it away under ELF. And unlike say Texas, if you want to drill an oil well in Texas, you've got to pay the state for it, but you also have to pay the the landowner, the guy that owns the land, the farmer who owns the land, or the rancher, you got to pay him for his land. In Alaska, you only have to pay one person or one entity, and that's the state, because we own the land. Every Alaskan owns that oil. We own Prudhoe. When we became a state, the first thing we said, the federal government said, you can claim so much land, and the first thing we said, we want Prudhoe, and we were very wise to do that because it was so wealthy in oil. So I don't want to go too far on this, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that this referendum is going to occur, and because we had that ELF tax that was a giveaway, then Governor Sarah Palin, I was Senate President for the 2 years Sarah Palin was governor. And we didn't get along on so many areas, but I got to say, one thing Sarah Palin did for this state is she raised taxes on oil. And the reason we've got $15 billion in savings is because Sarah Palin saw to it that we raised taxes on oil. You got to give her credit for that, like her or not. She did that. Now, the governor's proposal, which is to reduce taxes on oil, would just be so what's right? How much should we be charging oil? That's the important issue. The oil companies. I've been asked if the governor's tax is relief, if his reduction in taxes to the oil company is refused, if the public says we don't want to do that, then what happens? Well, then I think it goes back to the legislature, and we will consider ways of giving. Because I think we have a responsibility of giving some relief to the oil companies, but in other areas not. I think that there are some things we should reduce taxes on, and the first thing is what's called progressivity. It's a hard, complex to understand, but as the price of oil goes up, say right now it's a little under $100, it goes up to $110, $150, $200 a barrel. It could go up that, but say it could go up to $150. As the price of oil goes up, we as a state keep more of that increase, and the oil companies get less of it. So there is a point at which it's probably fair that we share more with them, because we want them to be producing oil. We don't want to have them stop it. We want to encourage them to produce oil. So as prices increase, progressivity, we probably want to share a little more of the benefits of oil with them, of the price. The second thing has to do with new oil. Whenever oil companies produce new oil into the pipeline, it's probably good that we give them a little better share, because we want to encourage them to keep doing that. We want them to find new oil wells and new finds and put it in the pipeline. But we don't need to give them money for that oil that's being pumped out of Prudhoe every day, every month, every year. All they do is the spigot is running and it's automatic and it's going into that pipeline. And why should we give them a reduction in taxes for that, which they're going to produce anyway? I was talking with a fisherman earlier and brought up an interesting point. I think that when we became a state, all of Alaska's canneries were owned in Seattle, and the Seattle canners were opposed to statehood. And they testified that if Alaska becomes a state and they have the right to tax canned fish, and if they put a 1 cent tax on per case, we were talking about that and did that, a 1 cent tax per case on canned salmon, the big salmon canners said, we're not coming back. If you charge us 1 cent a case, we're not coming back to Alaska. Well, that was baloney. Of course, we all knew that. I mean, they wouldn't walk away from their investment, about their needs, about their customers. There was something we're not going to do that. But it was just a way to push us around. I think what the oil companies are doing is the same thing. If you don't give us the Parnell tax decrease, we're leaving. We're not coming back. So, I mean, it's not fair for me to just to tell you what I think, because you're going to have to listen to what people tell you. You're going to have to read what's going on, and you have to make this decision. Should we support the governor's tax reduction, or should we not? And it's going to be a big issue, and I wish you luck on that. But it's where it should be, because you're the one that should decide. But I think what you guys did, Dave, is follow the legal process, which allows Alaskans to be a part of a referendum and put it on the ballot, and that's right where it should be. And now the arguments will continue, and,
Yes.
and everyone will have their say, and we'll have a chance to listen to them and make our honest decision of what we think is right. You know, there are still people, a lot of people who believe that the governor was right, a lot of people who believe the governor was wrong. I have no idea. I have no, I wish I could tell you how it's gonna come out, but I just don't know. It's gonna be very interesting to see what the public thinks, you know? Now, I would say that, for the most part, rural Alaska seems to be opposed to a reduction in taxes. But when you talk to folks in Anchorage who work for the oil industry, they're in favor of it. And I just can't believe that just because you work for ConocoPhillips that you would sell your soul and give them every benefit no matter what,
That's where there's
and hurt us. Well, and remember, when the vote took place in the Senate, as I said, it was 11 to 9. We only had 20 people. Two of the senators who voted for it were employees of ConocoPhillips. I mean, I think they did what they thought was right. And they could not vote. In our system, you cannot not vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the way the rules are in the legislature. You cannot not vote. And the idea basically is that everybody in Alaska deserves to be at the table, and so your senator should have a chance to vote. Somehow I think if you have a real conflict of interest, you should be able to drop out and not vote. But anyway, that was the rules they were following. So, good. Well, I think if you look at the big picture, we've got $15 billion in savings. If we follow what Parnell wants to do, we'll have $10 billion in savings. How long is that savings going to last? If we spend it down in 3 years, then what do we do? Right now, we are so fortunate that we are paying for education and police protection, all the things that we have through revenue from oil, because we own the oil. We own the oil fields. We own Prudhoe Bay. But what happens if we go back to the Elf days where we don't get that revenue from oil? Well, we're going to come to you and say, okay, we got to pay for education, we got to pay for the state police. What do you want to do? And really, the only two things you can do as the public. You can say, okay, let's use the permanent fund, or okay, let's have an income tax. I mean, you got to find a way. Yeah. People are really excited about either one of those options, and yeah.
I think people are excited now about the Colorado option,
What's that?
taxing marijuana.
Well, that's going to be on the ballot too. I mean, this is going to be an exciting election because marijuana will be on the ballot, oil tax will be on the ballot. What else is on the ballot? Remember, this is where it should be. It's in your hands. This is a democracy. You can override the decision of the legislature and of the governor and do what you think is right, or you can agree with it. I mean, who knows where it's going.